I will never get used to how effective having a gavel is. I should just travel with one. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Jeremiah Ellison and I am the chair of the Policy and Government Oversight Committee. I'm going to call to order our regular meeting for Monday, September 19th. Wait, is it the 19th? It's the 18th. September 18th, 2023. I'll now ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Vito,
Present.
Chavez,
Present.
Koski,
Present.
Johnson,
Present.
Vice Chair Wansley is absent. Chair Olson,
Here.
we have 5 present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. We have 27 items on the consent agenda, which I'll now read for the record. I'm a little upset that there are so many, but we're a busy, active city. All right, so one is election judge and duty city clerk appointments for November 7th, 2023 general election. 2 is a gift acceptance of travel expenses for FBI training division. 3 is a gift acceptance of travel expenses from the Special Olympics of Minnesota. 4 is a gift acceptance from the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance of travel and lodging expenses. 5 is a gift acceptance from the Big Cities Health Coalition of travel, lodging, and incidental expenses. 6 is a contract with DRI Consulting and SKS Consulting for management, assessment, and related services. 7 is a contract with Jensen Hughes, Inc. for training assessment services. 8 is a contract amendment with Vinco, Inc. for catch basin and manhole repairs. 9 is contract amendment with Corner House, Interagency Child Abuse Evaluation and Abuse Training Center for Forensic Interview Services of Children and Vulnerable Adults. 10 is a contract amendment with T-Zac Concrete, Inc. for the Queen Avenue Bicycle Boulevard project. 11 is a contract amendment with the Safety Signs LLC for additional rental of traffic control devices. 12 is a contract amendment with Stentac, Inc. for engineering and design services for the Upper Harbor Terminal project. 13 is a contract amendment with Roya Media LLC for communications and marketing services. 14 is a contract amendment with Emergent Software LLC for web hosting services for the city's comprehensive plan, Minneapolis 2040. 15 is a contract amendment with B2B Technology, Inc. for PeopleSoft Database Administrator Services. 16 is a lease amendment with the Canal Street Limited Partnership for Neighborhood and Community Relations leased office space. Items 17 through 27 are all legal settlements related to workers' compensation claims. And so appreciate a little cheat code in there in the, so I can skip those 10 items. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. First, I just want to have the clerks record my attendance, and I'm here. Next is, I did want to make comments on the worker comps claims, specifically 17 through 27. I am very aware that, residents are incredibly frustrated to see another $1 million go towards police worker comp settlements. These settlements have also been a massive financial burden on taxpayers, so much so it's largely why property owners will see their taxes go up, because you're literally footing the bill for hundreds of worker comps claims by MPD officers. The city's actuarial study confirmed what residents have already observed, that this is a massive liability. I also want to note, that this volume of claims will be coming to several POGO cycles in the future, because we're not far from done from paying these out. And also, most importantly, these payouts are going to officers that have done egregious acts of misconduct towards residents and also have not been held accountable. So I want to just affirm, I've heard from constituents repeatedly about these workers' comps, especially with the high volume that's in front of us today, and just say, I recognize, and this is why I'm committed with working with my colleagues to figure out how we rein in the blank check that keeps being signed to MPD repeatedly over and over. So in light of that, I do want to record a nay vote on items 17 through 27 also.
We haven't taken up roll call yet, but noted, and I do appreciate Councilmember Wansley's comments. While there have been some state law changes that I appreciate and hopefully will help us rein in this cost, one of the reasons that I think it's great that we have council members that don't support these, but one of the reasons that I have is because my understanding of the workers' comp process is that we either pay the entire claim or we pay these settlements. And so in the spirit of saving money, that is why I vote for them, but I 100% respect my colleagues who don't, and glad that we can generate the kind of conversation that we need to generate around these claims. And I think that conversation has played a role in our ability to inform people and get better laws at the state level. So thank you, Vice Chair Wansley. Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? I will first take up just items 1 through 16 in a voice vote. All those in favor in passing items 1 through 16 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Items 1 through 16 are passed. And if we could maybe call the roll on items 17 through 27.
Councilmember Vital,
Aye.
Chavez,
No.
Koski,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Apologies. Vice Chair Wansley
Nay.
and Chair Ellison.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes and 2 nays.
And those items are approved as well. And so we are now moving on to our discussion items. Next, we have the continued item from last meeting, which is related to the gift acceptance of loaned executive services from Ryan Companies. If you've got any more information for us, we're welcome to hear it. Mr. Jeffries, otherwise, I'll see if my colleagues have any discussion. Vice Chair Wansley. Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Ellison, council members. So just to reiterate, as what Councilmember Ellison said, this is a follow-up item from the last POGO meeting. This RCA is to accept the approval of free services provided by Ms. Colleen Dockendorf, who's in attendance today, who is the Chief Impact Officer of Ryan Companies, to provide core organizational development and expertise to the evolving Office of Community Safety and its departments. Ms. Dockendorf will be focusing on providing support to the Commissioner's Office and specifically the Neighborhood Safety Department and those other parts of our organization that really need support and development and staffing. I'll leave it to Ms. Dockendorf to answer any questions about specific activities, but I know during the last POGO meeting it was raised, does this conflict with any follow-up from the Minneapolis Safe and Thriving Communities report? After discussion with Interim Commissioner Lee Sheehy, who is absent on a long-planned time away here today, after conversation with Commissioner Sheehy, Colleen, and several others involved in Minneapolis Safe and Thriving Communities report, I think the way that we would characterize that is that they have the potential to be complementary and don't overlap. So I did just want to say that up front as well. But Ms. Dockendorf and I are happy to answer any questions out there.
Thank you so much. I'll see if my colleagues have any discussion, and I'll call on Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. First, I just want to say thank you to Interim Commissioner Sheehy for speaking with me last week about this item. But in light of those conversations and during those conversations, I still never heard a clearly articulated reason or specificities around what executive services would be offered and how they would differ from the job of the OCS commissioner and his staff, and differ from the new public safety position in the mayor's office, both of which are essentially created to provide executive support in getting OCS organized, focused, and on track to start, meeting its stated goals under our government restructure ordinance. There, again, also has not been a satisfying explanation, at least from my conversation with Interim Commissioner Sheehy, around what executive services that Ms. Dockendorf would be providing and why this is not something that our paid staff is already doing. And after speaking with Interim Commissioner Sheehy, I believe we just have a difference of opinion. I also think it's inappropriate to give, corporate executives unstructured access to government agencies, and that's kind of what's present right now in our RCA, which I raised with Commissioner Sheehy. Right now, the RCA just lists Mrs. Dockendorf's bio and CV and nothing more, which is troubling. And this is the time where we should be utilizing the services of those who have specialized backgrounds in areas like public safety or public health and other social services, which is why I was, very consistent. Why aren't we bringing in Dr. Oftelli to help support this specific work? So I'm struggling still to see the connection between how an executive from a corporate developer is going to bring in expertise towards transforming our public safety system. I've long advocated that, yes, housing is fundamental to public safety, thriving public safety of our communities, but I don't see a corporate developer providing that analysis when we have an array of, experts, again, in the fields of public health, transformative or comprehensive public safety, who could step up and do that work. So I do feel nervous about supporting this. I'm not going to actually be supporting it. I feel like it can lend itself to bad governance and damage the city's credibility with the public, to see that we're not being very specific in how we're bringing in, contractors to support the OCS department that has undergone so many transitions and also many concerns from the public of what is it actually accomplishing on the comprehensive side. So I at least just wanted to share that I had the opportunity to connect with Interim Commissioner Sheehy, and unfortunately was not moved to a place to be able to support this item. But just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wansley. I do have a few questions. I was also able to talk with Interim Commissioner Sheehy, and I came in with a lot of concerns. I think in some ways still share a lot of Councilmember or Vice Chair Wansley's concerns. But I do think I maybe landed in a different place, but I wanted to have some of the conversation or ask you just some follow-up questions from my conversation with Interim Commissioner Sheehy. One was that I do know that we sort of pulled him out of retirement. He can't be here today. It's not because he doesn't think this is important, but as you stated, he had a long-time conflict from before he was before he took on the interim role. I'm glad that you guys were amenable to making sure that this role didn't overlap with the CPED director search. I did feel like that presented at least the appearance of a conflict of interest, if not an actual conflict of interest. And so thank you for your flexibility and appreciate Commissioner Sheehy for removing that from the scope of work. I guess my question is, would Mrs. Dockendorf be coming on to give input on public safety or give administrative input on how to run an organization?
Thank you, Chair Ellison. I'll call up Ms. Dockendorf, but I will say it is primarily the organizational administrative support.
Welcome, Ms. Dockendorf.
Thank you. Nice to be here again. It is purely figuring out how an organization functions well together. So looking at individual roles, responsibilities, making sure that there's open communication and clarity of those roles. So that's part of it. And working with Oftelli as kind of the architect, and I'm the implementer. So part of it is talking about that organizational design across the office, as well as the interrelation with other departments, both within the city and with Hennepin County, with neighborhood organizations, with the state, et cetera. But the second part is also recruiting. So figuring out what specific roles we need, looking at the characteristics and qualifications of the people that we're looking for, making sure they will offer something new and different, because we know that we're looking for new and different and innovative in our city. So again, I look at it as, the recipe and kind of the architecture's being worked on, but concurrent with that, we need people actually baking the cake, building the building, et cetera.
Yeah.
And to address Councilmember Wansley's concerns, I do have a background in public safety, and I do sit on the board of directors of Project for Pride in Living, so that knowledge of public safety as well as housing for everyone, I do have background in that. So,
Thank you.
Any other direct questions?
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, Ms. Dockendorf, are you or have you been a city council member?
I have been, yes.
All right.
Jan
So
Hassan.
former council member. No, Mr. Chair, I think this is great. I'm really excited to see this come forward. This is a huge need. You seem very experienced, and I know that perhaps not all of my colleagues feel comfortable given a connection to a corporate developer, though they play an important role in creating housing in our city, and that's really critical and important. But just looking at your resume, it's incredible the amount of diverse, public-focused experience that you have, nonprofit experience, the public policy fellow with Humphrey Institute as well. And I know this is a very serious need, not just within the Office of Community Safety, but frankly throughout the enterprise, I think. So maybe afterwards we'll identify some other opportunities if we're able to keep you any longer. I see. It might be a no, but
I am
one thing at a
retiring
time. One thing at a time. But no, I do think this is really important work and the right time. So I'm glad you're willing to do it, and I'm glad that your employer is also willing to lend you to the city in this way and your talent. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. Similar comments to Councilmember Johnson. You have an extremely impressive resume. We are lucky that before you fully retire, you're making a stop here at the Minneapolis City Council to help us out with some much-needed coordination of services. I think I've heard all council members share their concerns about how this department moves forward and how coordinated it needs to be and feel for this community to understand how it's going to work for us. And so I appreciate you, again, making this stop on your road to retirement to help us out. I appreciate your employer helping us out with these services. And more than anything, I appreciate you coming back to this meeting to explain further how this is going to work for us. So thank you so much. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you for your comments. It's an honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Vita. And Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to chime in as well. And prior to being on the council, I worked for a consulting firm when we placed experts just like you into different organizations. So I'm very familiar with when there is a team of individuals that also need to bring in a layered expertise to help support them. It's not one or the other, it's both things happening at the same time. And so I'm grateful for your expertise and the ability for us to be able to take this on here at the city and learn from you. So grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. Mrs. Dockendorf, can you share, it seems like there's not, also in the RCA, a timeline for how long this contract will take place? Can you share in the next 60 days or so, what are some of the things that you're excited to accomplish under organizational development, some specifics of that again, because it's not in the RCA?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first issue, the timeline, I am planning on retiring at the end of the year, and hopefully the work with the city will also coincide with that timeline. It will probably be 25 to 30 hours a week, so that gives you a sense of scope. What I'm very excited about is kind of taking the puzzle pieces apart and reforming them. So much of what the report and the potential structure are all great concepts and ideas, and a lot of things that we actually do, the city already actually does, or the county provides, or the state provides. So it's that figuring out how it all makes sense to come together and coordinate the services and not be redundant. And so I'm hoping that the basic structure will be put in place. And furthermore, there are specific positions that need filling. So it's creating the outlines of what we think the absolute responsibilities of those positions will be, and then doing the recruiting, hopefully hiring and onboarding of those roles.
And which division of OCS, or is it kind of all of the departments?
Starting with neighborhood safety, starting with neighborhood safety, but also applying to the whole OCS.
Okay, and you mentioned also with the Safe and Thriving's report, piece too. You'll be supporting the implementation of that. Is there anything on, I know on page 108, there's the initiative launch list that kind of lays out what it seems like what you could support. Is there, of the, 5 pieces, anything that you'll be specifically addressing in the 60 days before you get to retire by the end of the year?
I did read it.
Yeah.
I know what they are. We have not talked about which bullet points or which order we'll be addressing them, so I don't know yet.
So okay, that specific piece, which I think, again, the clarity is needed on that. Because there's great, outlines here, but what does that look like in a 60-day, 70-day timeline? And then will there be a report back to this committee then on OCS or probably PHS then to say maybe of, page 108, what was completed?
It's more a question.
Thank you, Councilmember Wansley. To answer your question, yes, obviously, we have our quarterly public health and safety reports to the from OCS and its department. So that would probably be the forum, but I imagine there will be other opportunities to update on the progress as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. And I think we are wrapping discussion here. So, but before we call to the vote, I just wanted to thank you and thank Ms. Dockendorf for being here to answer questions. And I think that there's a range here, right? We've got some skepticism, we've got some excitement, we've got some cautious optimism. I would put myself in the cautious optimistic category. But I think being able to talk to the interim commissioner about the scope of services, being able to hear from you about what that scope looks like. I think some very good questions from Councilmember Wansley about timeline and priorities. I really do appreciate this discussion and hope that you understand it's all a part of good governance, not a reflection on our opinions of you personally. So thank you for being here. With that, I'll ask the clerks to call the roll on this item.
Councilmember Vita,
Aye.
Chavez,
Aye.
Koski,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Wansley,
Nay.
Chair Ellison.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes and 1 nay.
And that motion is approved. Thank you again. So next we have a presentation related to the contract with Zen City Technologies US Inc. for Community Perception Survey. I'll now invite staff and their guests to begin their presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, council members. I'm here to present a person who will be making a presentation to you regarding Zen City and the request for a committee action on council approval of $500,000 over a 3-year period. The first year will also include a $50,000 setup cost to that. The $500,000 contract is to conduct citywide resident surveys, a survey with our residents to gauge the perceptions of the Minneapolis Police Department. And the intent of that is to establish a baseline. So there is a baseline of comparison as we progress through and move through our settlement agreement with MDHR and anticipated agreement with the DOJ. This will not replace the community sessions that have been taking place over the past few months here. But what it will do is kind of bolster and support the efforts of the agreement and making certain that we hold our department and our actions accountable, and we continue to progress through with tracking how we're doing and what we're doing by comparing it to that baseline. So I'd like to introduce to you the person from Zen City, and that's Maurice Klassen.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Maurice Klassen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Zen City. As I mentioned last week, I'd like to start the presentation with a brief summary of my career, not because for any other purpose other than to connect it to the dashboards and the surveys which you'll be experiencing if we move forward with this RFP award, because we used this tool when I was in the city of Chicago, both as the Chicago Police Department Director of Strategy as well as the Chief of Staff for Mayor Lori Lightfoot. I began my career as a lawyer, recovering lawyer in Seattle, Washington. When I moved to Chicago, I began work as a program officer at the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, where we did a tremendous amount of research on criminal justice reform, violence prevention, as well as police reform. As part of that work, we became aware of this tool that was creating real-time survey response and feedback on community trust and respect for police departments. When I was asked by Mayor Rahm Emanuel to join his task force looking into the shooting of Laquan McDonald, this tool became something we were aware of again. When I entered the Chicago Police Department as the Director of Strategy, we actually brought the tool with us and began to set it up in advance of the consent decree the Chicago Police Department entered with the Illinois Attorney General. We built that tool using two metrics, trust and safety. And I'll talk in a moment about how the tool has developed over years, but eventually I brought the tool with me to City Hall, where we began to use it both in performance management and in the conversation with the consent decree. Following my time at City Hall, I joined Zen City. At core, this tool began and through a conversation that former police chief Bill Bratton from New York and Los Angeles had with former Obama for America analytics head Michael Simon, where Chief Bratton asked, how can we begin to build trust metrics into CompStat and management, community metrics into the metrics that police use to gauge their success? What we came out of that was a tool that uses digital surveys fired at your phone, your computer, wherever your digital tools live, and then based upon census data, map that to the number of people, both demographically, by gender, by race, by age, that live in those neighborhoods, so that those aspects can be built into dashboards used by both police departments and communities to understand how metrics are moving month by month about trust and safety. As I mentioned, the tool has developed over the last few years. It began as a simple question about trust and safety. What we found was the police departments weren't able to use it very well because it was simply just a sense of what the executives would understand those numbers to be. So in order to be able to build more about community metrics and understanding on baseline of what officers were using in their day-to-day, we added a text box, which allows you to ask the question, what's the number one concern you have about public safety? Then through a partnership with the London Metropolitan Police Department, we added several more questions, focusing on voice of residents, respect, how you're being treated, approachability of officers. And then on the question, the text box of what your number one public safety concern is, we asked, what would you like done about it? And where is this occurring? All of this data is then built into dashboards that are served both as an API for computers, for the officers as well as community members, as well as PDFs that are given on a monthly basis to be able to track performance management. We're now in a number of police departments across the country, including, I think, 10 of the top 30 police departments by population. But most importantly, we're also a part of police departments that are now exiting consent decrees, including Albuquerque and Seattle. In Albuquerque, the police chief has mentioned this is actually the tool that he believes not only will help gauge the progress of the consent decree, but also how the department stays out of the consent decree. And then departments that are currently entering consent decrees, like Chicago and Louisville. So now I'd like to turn it back over to you for questions, but I wanted to be able to provide that brief presentation.
I appreciate the explanation and the presentation. I'll see if my colleagues have any questions. I did put myself in queue for a few, and so I'll kind of start us off here. I've got some concerns with this item, and it's not a reflection of you and your business and what you guys do. I've got two concerns that maybe staff can discuss. One is around the cost. $500,000 is not lightweight to throw around here at the city of Minneapolis. I've got a concern about that. And the other, and the two I guess are related. The other is around how this sort of fits with all of the work that's going on with the consent decree. We have so many different ways to evaluate the department right now. We have so many different positions being created to evaluate the way that the department is going. We have so many different departments collaborating with the police department to engage with community. And I think that maybe if I had seen, if there was like a visual that said like, here's the map. Here's all the little tools that get us here. Here's how they're not redundant. Here's how they might be redundant. But we take these up piecemeal, which makes it really difficult as a committee to understand when we're creating redundancies, when we're, deploying dollars in a responsible way, when, and also again, like when as a contract, I have nothing to compare the price of this to, right? Like, when is this a fair amount of money to pay for a piece of software like this? When is it not? And these are the things that that I feel like I'm missing in order to support this. And I guess I'm frustrated because I'm not an automatic no on this item today, but those are some of the things that I'm concerned about. And so there's not an explicit question there, and there are other questions in the queue. And so I want to allow my colleagues to ask their questions. But if you've got a response, happy to hear it. Otherwise, we can, yeah.
Sure, I can respond. I know some staff can also respond to some of these pieces, but just in terms of cost, and then maybe a comment about how this all fits in with the consent decree. On cost, our software is based upon the number of officers and the number of surveys that we'll be conducting, and part of it is based on the cost that it takes us to actually survey folks, which I think is something that obviously you haven't entered into any agreements with any parties yet, but will likely be a part of any consent decree, right? The ongoing statistical analysis of what residents think about their consent decree, about their police department, is something that's just built into most. The second piece about that cost, it is broken out over 3 years. So this is not a cost of $500,000 for 1 year. It's $150 per year, which includes, the cost of actually acquiring the survey results themselves and then building them into the actual dashboards. And so obviously I work for the company, so it's easy for me to say, but it's actually relatively for the amount that we're putting into it, I think a pretty low cost. It's completely in accord with London, which is paying well over $1 million, Chicago, Seattle, Albuquerque, Louisville, all similar costs, and by per officer and per resident. In terms of fitting into the consent decree, or fitting into all the work that you're doing in the consent decree, I can only speak to my experience in Chicago, as well as some of the observations I've had in other departments. Ultimately, beyond the fact that you'll likely have to do this anyway in another survey, and that cost will occur somehow, this tool actually is one of the only tools in terms of surveying that builds it into actual dashboards that are then usable both from an API perspective on people's computers as well as a sort of PDF. You'll also be getting on-site time from our team to be able to help build this into your data infrastructure. One of the challenges we've found, and candidly, this is a mistake that we made in the beginning in Chicago, is that sometimes you think you take a software or a survey right off of a bookshelf, and you think that it just self-actualizes. And the reality is what we've learned, you have to meet with every single community group that you can, officer group that you can, do focus groups to be able to say, how do you consume your data? Where do you consume your data? How does this get built into the management structures that you currently have so that data gets used? It's one thing just to get data, just to get a survey. There's lots of surveys all over the country that give you a sense about how people feel about police, but is it getting used? And I think that's really what sets us apart.
Thank you. I would just add, and these are questions just to know, so the public and so staff know where my mind is on this. Some of the other things that brings up for me is, why wouldn't this contract then be in, let's say, audit, right, as opposed to the contract living within the police department? So that's just an open-ended question. I don't expect you to answer that at all, that you're the potential contract awardee. And then the other question would kind of be about priority as well. I think we get a lot of money going towards outreach, perception, messaging. We saw that as a critique early on with some of the new positions in OCS all being vaguely comm adjacent positions. And I think that, my experience is that even people who have been on the receiving end of some lesser police service, I would say, people are incredibly forgiving and deferential to officers, because, that's my experience with people. And I know officers might feel differently, but when I go talk to constituents, even the ones who have critiques, they want to be deferential and forgiving of departments. I do sort of question why we're sort of front-loading perception and messaging and comms as opposed to accountability, behavior change, and maybe that's maybe staff would disagree that that's where the priority is, but I'll say that from my vantage point and from at least some of the public's vantage point, it feels like there's a front load on perception and comms and narrative, and not so much on the actions that lead to bad perceptions and messaging. So I've taken up a lot of time. I think I saw Vice Chair Wansley in queue, then we have Councilmember Johnson in queue, and a few others. So I'm gonna pass it on. So Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. This is probably more relevant for staff to answer, but some of the questions you raised around duplication of service, I know with the third precinct engagement survey, we somewhat did that in-house in consultation with an outside vendor, but I believe it was the city of Minneapolis that then disseminated that survey, and it was also a pretty much widely distributed survey. I wanted to see why we did not proceed with looking at doing something in-house, because I shared the same kind of, 500,000 like ticket price shock around a survey, and thinking that maybe we could do this internally. So just seeing, if that was ever explored.
Chair and Councilmember Wansley. Yes, when we looked at this program or this organization and what they can provide, first and foremost, we looked at when at least the new administration had come in at how we could best serve the citizens, and the best way to do that was by listening, first and foremost. And when we did listen to the citizens, they have told us several times over, as recently as a week ago, and just engaging in conversation about how we need to be able kind of to empower them to give us feedback. And a lot of people, when they look at the surveys, they look at it and say, well, what are you doing with this? What we're doing with it is pretty much giving the citizens an opportunity to tell us what we're doing in service for them, because it's their police department. With bottom line, it's their police department. So when we bring in those data from these surveys, what we're looking to do is primarily, of course, build trust. As I said before, bolster the consent or agreements that we have. These settlement agreements that we have are extremely important to all of us in this room and to all of our citizens. So when we have an ability to empower them to tell us whether or not we're doing well within each specific precinct, whether or not we're doing well within, in terms of the MDHR findings, whether or not we're doing well with the Native American community, whether or not we're doing well with the African American community, this feedback gives us that opportunity to make corrections if we're finding ourselves kind of shortfalling in the process, or continue doing things if we're progressing in that manner. The important thing for us as an administration in the police department is to make sure that we continue to progress with this agreement that we have, the settlement agreement. Is it okay if we pause? Sure, if we're making corrections and objectively looking at and empowering our citizens to tell us exactly what they want, and then making adjustments to continue to progress. But what this survey and this and Zen City will do for us is make certain that we don't regress. Because when we go backwards, it takes us so long to continue to go forward, because we have to once again stop and rebuild that trust with the citizens. And what this does is give us that opportunity to do that and evaluate that on a yearly basis. A yearly basis, if this is not working, then we will make adjustments. But we also are in understanding that there is a 6-month piece to this, where we're getting reports, and we get reports monthly, is my understanding, through Zen City, to continue moving forward and making sure that we're meeting the expectations of our citizenry.
I just want to restate I don't think you heard my question specifically. I mentioned, why did we not explore, or have we explored what a cost would be to do this in-house? And I referenced the third precinct survey, because that was a $100,000 process that included a pretty large scale survey that I know our IT department, in consultation with a vendor, they did. But again, that was around $100,000. So just thinking again, the concerns that I heard was around the amount that we're spending on this survey, and if there was a pathway to do this in-house, either with NCR, with IT, in consultation with MPD. I know you all are staffing up community specialists, or also data scientists. There's evaluation staff already, involved. So just saying, was there a pathway to do this also in-house?
And Chair and Councilmember Wansley, that was before I came into my position. So I would defer this over to Skylar Nash and to give you a better answer.
Yeah, Chair, Vice Chair, at the beginning of opening up this RFP, we did examine whether we had the capacity internal to the city, whether it was through IT or in consultation with NCR, to do the type of real-time surveying and tracking of metrics that Zen City and other RFP respondents we're proposing to do. We're not currently there as a city. I know that IT and NCR, and as an enterprise, we would like to get to the point whereas we're making these major public policy decisions or trying to change operations in response to community feedback, that we would be able to handle and solicit feedback in that way. We're not currently there. If at some point, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, we have gotten to the place where we've built up that capacity, that's when we might have to do a course correction. But it was important for us to open this RFP in this moment in time as we're entering into the MDHR settlement agreement and the eventual DOJ consent decree, that as we're parallel track developing this capacity internally, we make sure that we don't miss this moment and opportunity to establish a baseline that we can continue to track and hold ourselves accountable to down the line. Because we know that when we're managing people in a community meeting or we're tracking our compliance, those are important aspects of this, but this is also about attitudes and feelings that are a little bit harder to capture in a moment in time at a community engagement meeting, or are not sufficiently captured just because we've come into compliance with a specific part of one of the agreements or the consent decrees.
And just also follow up on that, do you know if council, for instance, since this would be a survey that's technically going out to our constituents, and in light of what happened with the 3rd Precinct survey too, will we have the ability to see or provide input on the survey questions? I know in the RCA or Zen City mentioned that they're going to do everything possible to try to minimize bias in the administration of the survey. I think we had the same goals with the 3rd Precinct survey, and still there was gaps. So one, to know if there's opportunity for council to also be able to preview those survey questions and provide input before they go out publicly.
Yeah, we absolutely, in our work finalizing the survey questions with Zen City, can meet with council members to see if there's any blind spots that either Zen City or the department have. And then we want to be in conversation with Councilmember Vitaw about utilizing the OCS quarterly presentations at PHS to do a deeper dive into the stats that we're seeing, but also continue to think about how we can, as we're rolling out, and get an understanding of the metrics that we're going to be receiving on the department level, being in conversation with community and with council members as well about how we continue to use these metrics in a better way, because we haven't been at this place before getting these types of inputs.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that you had made a comment about nothing to compare the price to, so I don't know if it's helpful to share, but I know in 2016, Wilder Research was doing residential surveys for the city of Minneapolis. And I believe the price tag was somewhere in this range, but that also was beyond just policing. It covered housing, it covered all these other different city services as well. And so it seems like it's in the reasonable range. I generally think that the city needs to do more of this type of surveying. That said, I do have several questions around this. And the first for Zen City is around how, so you're distributing this digitally.
Correct.
How are you ensuring that this is really representative data? How do you not have self-selection bias in the digital process? I've never really seen that be successful, because, at least from my understanding, that it actually wouldn't be representative data, because if I get a link and it's about the surveying the police department, if 9 out of 10 people don't respond to that link and the 10th person has a bone to pick one way or the other, or feels really strongly one way or the other, we're missing what the actual sentiment is from the other 9. Right. How do you address that? How do you make sure do you believe that this is representative, scientifically representative data?
So I'd start by saying yes, but it's a great point, council member, and I think there's sort of 3 ways to respond to it. The first is that this is a rising trend or form of analysis within surveying, right? It's clearly a non-probability sample because you're not getting absolutely everybody, but that has to be adjusted in terms of how we're actually gathering the sample. We've now found over the course of the last 10, 20 years that telephone surveys, sort of landline surveys have been going down over the course of time, so we haven't been able to get the number of people that we actually need through those surveys. And so finding an academic analysis between probability and non-probability as it relates to internet surveys has become an emerging field. So there's ways, I think, to adjust to that. One is by watching the sample at all times for variance, being able to balance, and a concept we called rake weighting, which allows us to spread across the entire city and actually look by jurisdiction and make sure that we're getting each race, gender, age group for each of the jurisdictions that we're getting. The second role of response, and this is, I think, really important, is we're watching this on a sort of macro level and comparing it to more academic studies. We've actually talked to the police department also about partnering with academics here, potentially. The reality is that, like, when we look at our survey in London, for instance, the mayor's office does an in-person survey once every 6 months that actually involves an hour-long survey in a person's house. They use 8 of the same questions that we do, and our numbers are fairly close to one another. But what they're finding is what we're able to accomplish is getting a little bit more of a questioning group of folks versus what they have is a much more trusting group of government. So it allows them to be a little bit more critical of what's actually going on within government services. We're also able to get a more youthful group than they are. We're also able to get more Black Londoners than the past survey is able to do. In Chicago, we partner with Northwestern University to match what our survey is to theirs to figure out where the tracking numbers are. And same thing in Seattle, where our data is actually posted online with Seattle universities to be able to compare and contrast. So there's certainly some concern about the levels of bias, but we address it by adjusting on a day in, day out basis with our statisticians who are in-house. We have a PhD who heads our entire survey and analytics group. Second, we compare and contrast to academic studies in other places where we're working. And third, I think is probably most important, is we're constantly being able to track the actual data responses to be able to blend it out.
So I appreciate that response. That is fairly reassuring for me, and I think that's a strong response to that. My other question is, how do you ensure that this is actionable? When I go out to the Zen City website, I'm looking at the platform, I look under actionable results. The examples at a high level are not really actionable. I mean, it's more broad sentiment things. It's asking, focus on affordable housing or living wage jobs, healthcare, education. I mean, these are things everybody is supportive of generally, right? And it's very similar on the website. There's these other examples with kind of overall satisfaction metrics. And to me, these are not very actionable examples, and maybe I understand that maybe that's just for the ease of the website and connecting with people, but I'm curious to hear how we're actually looking to use this, because I could see there being a lot of opportunity for actionable results if, for instance, every victim of a crime who had an interaction with police officers received a follow-up text and ask them, hey, rate, how fast was the response? How was your experience with the officers? How do you feel about the department? We could capture a lot of sentiment, for instance, around victims of crime and how we may be able to better support them. Or our block club leaders. That's an area where I think there's tons of opportunity, huge resource citywide, and how we can better build those relationships with our block club leaders and utilize them and have them be facilitators of connection with their neighbors and with what the city's working on. But in this case, if you're doing broad-based public collection of data, and obviously you're trying to demographically be statistically relevant, how do you ensure it's actionable? Do you have some concrete examples of that?
Yeah, and let me start by saying, too, about the website, my apologies. There are several tools that live within the Zen City suite, and a lot of them actually focus more on social media, focus on government resident-facing websites. So I think sometimes our non-policing tools can sometimes sound a little bit more amorphous as that relates to social media. But as it relates to policing, I think it's a really good question, Councilmember. Something that we've worked on over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. When we rolled out in Chicago, it was really just a numeric response, right? It's literally like, what's the number you have for safety or the number for trust? And to your point, one of the things that many folks said to us is like, okay, so what? Right? Like, how am I supposed to move that number? And so what we've developed is over the course of time, multiple questions, right? So now you have 8 questions, still have numbers, but you see it over the course of time. But where you really get into the actionable data beyond the sort of long-term trends in these last 3 text box questions, and you say, what's the number one concern they have about public safety? What do you want done about it, and where is it occurring? And some examples on where that's been very useful. First, in Decatur, Illinois, for instance, one of the things that they saw over the course of 2 months was a huge amount of concern about a specific location around traffic. And you can actually see this on their social media track because they eventually published it. They went out and did several missions related to traffic, publicized it, and several months later, you actually saw the amount of folks that were commenting on that place go down, and the amount of concern about public safety regarding traffic actually decreased. And so they actually created sort of a flywheel of here's what community was concerned about, here's a mission related to it, and here's what we did about it. But probably the one that I'm most excited about, I tell them the biggest story about, is in Chicago, in the 25th district, we employ what we call the neighborhood policing initiative. It's based on the British model, right? So the typical US policing model is a rapid response, right? It's constantly responding to 911. The way the British do it is they split it in half. They say part of what you do is rapid response. The other half is neighborhood policing, which is going out to neighborhoods and determining what their number one concern is and then building missions around it. When we changed that district in the 25th district to be able to track on that sort of British model, both splitting the system and giving officers more time off the radio to be able to interact with community and come up with those sentiments, we actually saw trust and satisfaction numbers go up. So what you start to do is you also start to build this conversation around police and community groups to say what actually can change. Is it beat patrol timeline? Is it staying, beat integrity, staying within the same neighborhood so you can actually build those relationships? And then you're tracking every day rather than just simply crime. I think, to be quite honest, that's the real difference between the Zen City surveying and sort of your traditional surveying, is you're making it operational. Oftentimes what happens, you get these surveys and they just sit on a shelf, right? This is being built into dashboards, being built into PDFs, where you get it built into not only CompStat, but community meetings. In London, they're using our data to attend what they call their ward meetings. I'm sure all of us have been to community meetings where it's you guys more than any of us, where it's just a constant ad hoc of the number of concerns that people have. Using this data, they're going out and actually framing the conversation and saying, all of your concerns are valid. Just want to share with you, here's what we're seeing as the majority concern or the plurality concern. Can we have a discussion about that and build plans about it? And then next month we'll come back and have a conversation about how that data has changed. So, London, Decatur, Chicago, those would be just 3 top examples, but we could also talk about some others.
Thank you. And that's helpful to understand how you could use that as it makes sense to me around, for instance, the beat officers or, the visibility, those sort of things, how that could influence perceptions. And so that correlative data is of use. Do you offer anything that's more targeted, like I mentioned, around following up after there's been an incident with, for instance, victims of crime, in order to be able to feed that into, I could really see that into our early intervention system we're working on building out, and how that could be really, frankly, a really excellent data source to feed into that. Do you do anything like that yet?
We do. It's a little complicated, but we do. So what's important to understand about our system is it's very sort of behaviorally informed, right? We don't want to go out and ask a question saying, the city of Minneapolis is asking you for this, or the police department is asking for that. Why? It comes from Zen City, and we ensure anonymity. We do not track names. We do not track locations of folks beyond where the IP address is, right? And so to be able to say, hey, well, we want your information to tell us if you were a victim of crime, we don't do that. What we can do is at the end of the survey, we can direct you to a series of websites that we set up, which allow you to then have that interaction both on policy. So it's like if you want to provide your feedback, say, for instance, on a use of force policy, you can be directed to that web page. Do you want to be able to connect to victims, victim services? We can direct you to that web page. But the problem is then we have to draw that sort of line between anonymity and their ability to access those services. We do have another tool, which is called our exit surveys, which we're now working with the Chicago Police Department to institute, which is after you're victimized or after you're a witness of a crime, you get texted a survey. That's sort of a separate tool that we can talk about as well. But that way that we do it through this sentiment survey is directing you to certain websites and directing you to those services.
Gotcha. I could see ways too, especially if your cadence is every month on reporting, that you would still be able to maintain anonymity, but also be able to collect information that is actionable, specifically about which officers were on the scene, that sort of thing, and be able to feed that into the system. And I mean, that's really what, when we talk about coaching as an option to proactively coach around stuff like that, for instance, and to see the differences in terms of, how officers are received by victims of crime as they're having interactions, and, you know, do they feel really supported and that sort of thing versus, oh, maybe it was more of a, not as friendly experience, and that really opens up the door then for that coaching from a supervisor and being able to, over time, longitudinally, work to improve the outcomes and then be able to measure it and show that after coaching and after follow through, there has been improvement. And so that's more of maybe a suggestion, both within the department and as well as Zen City, that I think there's some real opportunity there. I mean, I get this all the time. I go to my doctor and I get, a message 5 minutes after it's done, a text message saying, hey, please rate your provider, that sort of stuff. And it's pretty standard now, and I would love to see that employed by the department. It seems like a really great opportunity just to improve overall service.
It's a great point. The other thing that we could do is our survey comes in a heat map form, right? So when you look at the dashboard, you actually see it as a map, and people can click through, right? So the chiefs and the supervisors can click through down to the district, down to the neighborhood. You can overlay that heat map with other heat maps like you're talking about for EIS, which also can, when you have that easy access to data, it becomes much more operational.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. And Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be really quick because I have to leave in a couple minutes. I share some of Councilmember Ellison's concerns, mostly why this wouldn't live in audit. I think that feels like the place for this to be from what I can understand now. But also just wondering if you have specific strategies to make sure underserved communities, people who don't traditionally, fill out a 10, 15-minute survey, take part in this. What I noticed in this city is we usually have the same people who participate in this type of stuff for policing in particular. So do you have anything that you do differently to ensure?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, our focus is very much on making sure that we do not sign off on our survey results until we've hit the demographic number that we need to hit for every neighborhood. So we will hit representation, and we guarantee that. But in addition to the digital component and the QR codes, we also provide not only a phone line to be able to hit other folks, we also do a amount of panels. We'll put together survey panels. If we're not hitting our numbers digitally, we will substitute for that sort of digital divide concern by putting together panels to be able to fill in the gaps when we're not able to reach folks. Because ultimately, this company was founded on the concept of improving trust with government, and the digital divide is one of those fundamental conversations. You can't be a true resident, a true citizen, unless you're actually getting full access to city services. So that's a major concern for us.
Thank you. That's it.
I turned my mic off. Thank you, Councilmember Vital. Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. I just had a quick question. It might be for you, it might be for our city staff, but you were talking about having this data when we have, or when we've had community meetings and access to that. Can you help me understand, as a council member that has monthly meetings, how do we participate in, and how will that look like for council members?
So I can kind of defer to city staff on this one.
Chair, Councilmember Koski, so that is a big reason for the initial or the additional setup cost that Zen City employs, is actually getting the Zen City team on the ground to work with the department as we're interfacing with the rest of the city departments that are support departments and council members, to figure out, as these metrics are becoming available to us, what's the most effective way for us to turn them into actionable information. And so, CompStat has been engaged as one area where we'll be able to plug these metrics in. I think doing regular presentations to the relevant council committees, but we also want to have evolving conversations about how have other cities in between these kind of benchmarks and milestones that might be on a council calendar have made this data available and useful to council members and to residents, because we want to complete this feedback circle, not just for the department, but for council members as well, that you're able to establish trends even within your own wards, rather than just having to rely on, well, I've gotten this amount of emails about this specific issue from this group, and so you're trying to gauge whether that is the issue pertaining to public safety that is most on the minds of your constituents, the same way for our officers and leadership in the police department. And so we want to have conversations in partnership with Zen City and with you all as council members as well, about how we can make sure that these reports, as we're getting back to them, are most actionable for you all as well.
Thank you. That's really helpful just to understand the cycle of, survey, analysis, action, survey, analysis, and how that will be able to participate. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Koski. And I think we have wrapped discussion. I was going to give a few more points. You're welcome to take a seat. I'll give a few. I'm going to ask my colleagues here for their input on a few ideas. One, two things that I don't like, happening before committee is that when things either die a slow death or unnecessary one. So I'm trying to prevent both. I think there's enough skepticism on this dais today that I don't know that this item as formed would pass today. Again, we haven't done the roll call, but that's the sense that I'm getting from my colleagues here. I do think that through this discussion that your due diligence and your professionalism is also evident to an extent as well. And so I guess I would ask staff if we can take the roll call today and kind of see how things go, or I would also be happy to continue this item, give ourselves another cycle to see what changes council members will want to see before we take this up and make a recommendation to the full council. Would love to see how staff feel about a delay of this item to potentially, modify it within the next cycle.
Sure, Chair Ellison, I'll try to read body language and feedback. I think that it's fair. We want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence on the department side, but also we want to do this work in partnership with council members. And so if it takes us another cycle to really dive into the nuts and bolts of this proposal and make sure that we land on a contract that is most usable for the department and for the city, then that's more than fine with us.
Yeah. I thank you, and I think that again, without telling you guys what you have to do today, because you have further expertise, we sort of vet what comes before us. I do think that looking at maybe having another department host this contract, again, how you gauge how that's appropriate, how that gets paid for. I'm happy to be a partner in that, in figuring all of that out and be in discussion with how that lands. But I think that would go towards building a little bit of trust and making sure that there's, again, this doesn't seem like it seems like a valuable tool, but making sure that it can be hosted somewhere that could be, a department that also could be relatively neutral. Still, obviously, it's a tool that MPD wants to be able to use, but audit, NCR, some of these other departments might be a better host for this tool. So I will kick it over to Councilmember Johnson. He has for further comment or question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that makes sense too. And I think for this tool, there's, value outside of MPD as well. And so in the long term, I think if there is sort of whether it's the audit department or what have you, and I certainly think the conversation around public safety, it makes sense to start with MPD, but I think there is value beyond MPD as well. And so there's a purpose as well for it living potentially outside. But I would just say, in terms of this 2-week cycle, any sort of mock-ups as well, any sort of visuals, I think that just helps council members, I can say for myself, connect with it more and what the actionability is and what the value is. So I think it sounds like that's something that can probably be done, I'm guessing, from some head nodding. So
I'm happy to return it. I'm not sure what the timeline is, but happy to return in 2 weeks and present that. I apologize, it's very easily accessible. We can actually show you the dashboard, we can show you the PDFs, we can show you what precisely will be given on what cadence. Easy to do that.
great, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to actually move to delay this one cycle. I don't know the date of the next POGO meeting off the top of my head, but I trust that the clerks will know that. And so on my motion to continue this item to the next regular POGO meeting, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, and that item is continued. Thank you all for being here. It was a valuable discussion, and we will see this item on the agenda again next cycle, so thank you. All right. And lastly, we have a receive and file presentation related to the 2023 to 2025 Police Federation contract, recommendations by the Minneapolis for a Better Police Contract. This is a receive and file from, not to diminish you all's expertise, you have plenty, but from a community group, not an official city department. And a few things. One is I think that the committee, myself, my colleagues, should all have access to really good information. I think you all have really good information to deliver to the council, so I want to thank you for your time to come, giving us your time, enduring an hour of our committee work here, and lending us your opinions and expertise. I really do appreciate it. There's a few things I'm going to try to paraphrase. I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to put my pretend lawyer hat on and just to say to my colleagues, just a few things that, a few notes that I want to make sure that I relay to the committee. Obviously, there are discussions, labor negotiations ongoing at the moment. That means that council members in asking our questions and in our discussion shouldn't be relaying confidential information pertaining to those negotiations here on the dais. For those that are a part of the negotiations work group, we shouldn't be relaying information that's happening in confidence to the public or to our presenters here. I'm going to ask that my colleagues, we all have strong opinions about the contract, about how things are going. I'm going to ask all of us, myself included, to refrain from sort of drawing our lines in the sand, making declarations of what we will and won't vote for when it comes to the contract, and to generally try to refrain from making comments that could give the appearance that the city is not here to negotiate in good faith. So I'm just going to lay that out. I'll ask the attorneys if I've missed anything in terms of fair warning to my colleagues. All right, seems like we're good to go. And with that, Ms. Gross and your team, I would welcome you all to give your presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes, come on up. I hope you can hear me. Great. Thank you, Chair Ellison and Vice Chair Wansley, for the opportunity to speak before this committee. We appreciate it very much. I also want to give a shout out to your exceptional staff that gave us great support and guidance, and that includes Bethany Turnwall, Celeste Robinson, and Kanani Omar. I also want to thank the rest of the council members, Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Koski, and a special shout out to Councilmember Chavez, my council member in Ward 9. We appreciate you being here. Councilmember Rainville, we want to acknowledge your presence and also the presence of the city clerk and the city attorney. I want to say that I'm Stacy Gurian-Sherman. I'm with Minneapolis for Better Police Contract. We are an all-volunteer coalition, and I'm sorry, Councilmember Payne, I didn't see you. Thank you for being here. I'm here with 4 other members of our steering committee, Michelle Gross, Dave Bicking, Shara Blanche, and Kim Millard, and we will be tag teaming in our 20-minute allotted presentation. I think it's incredibly fortuitous that we are here today when another 11 workers' comp authorizations are here. Councilmember Wansley, you brought this up. If my math is correct, it's almost $1,400,000. It is simply not effective, or sustainable to keep making payouts for workers' comp and lawsuits that are preventable. We have to do better by our city, we have to do better by our police officers, and that's what our recommendations do. If I were to give you a big overview of our recommendations, there are 22 of them. Almost all of them fall into basically 2 categories: harm reduction and transformational change. So harm reduction, I think we all know, is a term that came out of the public health sector for taking people who have addiction and making sure that they have care that is not stigmatized and have alternatives so that there are not negative consequences to their behavior. So we look at harm reduction in our proposals, our recommendations, 2 ways. It's harm reduction to mitigate consequences for people who are suffering from negative interactions with police. And 2, it is to mitigate the stress and the mental health challenges of officers so that they can have a better job. So 3 of the recommendations that we have: 1 limits hours that can be worked one limits days, one requires annual mental health screenings. Common sense, dollar and cents recommendations that will reduce what you had to do today and approve over $1 million in workers' comp. In terms of transformational change, you will hear from my other steering committee members, but the biggest one that we have probably is the non-emergency recommendation that comes right out of the Los Angeles Police Department union. They passed a proposal across the table to take all out of their purview over 25 or 30 different non-emergency calls. They cited low morale. They cited stubborn short staffing, which was highlighted in a Star Tribune article over the weekend. And what I have to say to you is, it is time. We can use this stubborn low staffing to start really realizing the promises and the reforms that were made not only after George Floyd's death, but before, and have been solidified by two state and federal investigations. We must look at community safety beyond policing, and that's what this particular recommendation and others do. I'm going to just quickly go through these quotes because I want to make sure that we acknowledge our solidarity with the City Council. You were disappointed and frustrated with the process and the contract that came out. You received a 2-page summary of a contract that was over 100 pages. This cannot happen again. So, Chair Ellison, you spoke about real work to get done. Vice Chair Wansley, you spoke about a lost opportunity to enact real reform. Councilmember Payne, you talked about the contract was negotiated as if the trauma that this community experienced was invisible. We also know that Mayor Fry said repeatedly in many different forums, the New York Times, the Star Tribune, and all over, there will be no raises without accountability. Unfortunately, this current contract did just that. It provided wages and increases with no increased accountability. Now is the time for the public and the City Council to demand substantive reform in the Police Federation contract to show the city is serious about reforms that must be done. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Michelle Gross, to speak to the next slides.
Thank you, Chair Ellison and Vice Chair Wansley and the rest of the council. Basically, what I want to talk about today is the need for the City Council to be engaged in this process. You need to be engaged in it, but you also have a right to be engaged in this process, to be active participants both in the contract negotiations and in the approval process. Start by familiarizing yourselves with the existing contract and with our recommendations. We're happy to make that easy for you. We would sit down with you with meetings, we can answer your questions. We want to make this thing as easy as possible. But one thing you will notice about our recommendations is that they don't touch pay or benefits. We're not trying to touch pay or benefits. What we are trying to do is focus strictly on reforms. You can also witness negotiations themselves. They're open to the public under the Pell Act. We have witnessed, the one meeting that's happened so far. The sessions happen about every 2 weeks. The next two are on September 27th and October 13th, both 9 a.m. to noon, in room 100 of the Public Service Building, as you know, is very close to here. You should also ask for regular updates from the Director of Labor Relations, including the proposals that are passed across the table, because again, that is public information and you're entitled to it. Once the contract negotiations are finalized, you should insist on receiving the entire contract with all changes marked, not just an executive summary. And you should insist on having enough time to actually review those changes, which is something that did not happen last time. You should also hold public hearings on the contract so that you can hear from the community. Finally, if you don't like what's in the contract, don't feel like it includes enough reforms, vote it down. I recall that during the last contract cycle, City Council members were pretty much told, you have to approve this contract. Your vote is meaningless if you can't vote no.
That's right.
I'm hoping that this cycle's process is transparent and receptive enough that you won't have to vote no, but you have to be prepared to assert your authority as our elected officials. You have to be prepared. The contract with the Police Federation lasts for, in this case now, it'll be 2 years. But the provisions of this contract will be especially important as the city begins to work on the Minnesota Department of Human Rights consent decree and the very likely Department of Justice consent decree. This is the most important contract we've ever looked at. Seriously. The City Council must play an active role in the negotiation cycle long before the point of receiving the contract for a vote. And then once you receive the contract for a vote, you must diligently review that contract and decide whether it meets your expectations. Not just give it another pass, as has happened so many times before. I now introduce you to Dave Bicking, who will discuss the next topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Ellison and other council members. Our recommendations are in line with the expectations of many city council members, as shown partly by the previous quotes. They are also in line with the city's stated priorities. We are looking closely at the first written proposal by the city from the first negotiation we were able to observe. It appears that a few of our recommendations already appear there, even if not always in our recommended language. So now let's look at the 22 recommendations. These are covered in great detail in our 33-page document, along with rationale and the language that we are proposing. Our recommendations are numbered in the order that they would appear in the contract, but here we are grouping them in a more logical fashion by their content. The first recommendation, the city has generally done a good job of reserving management rights, but we need more explicit language, especially for training, because the Federation has claimed the right for its officers to take any training they wish on their own time and at their own expense. Bulletproof Warrior training, in particular, trains officers in philosophy and actions that are contrary to MPD and community expectations. The remaining 4 recommendations on this slide would bring the contract into compliance with the city charter. Under the charter, the mayor has ultimate authority for discipline and hiring in the police department. Currently, he has delegated this authority to the police chief. But the Federation contract must not determine or assume who the mayor may wish to designate. Thank you. The recommendation number 9 is about when officers with experience in other departments are hired, they may bring with them training and culture which is contrary to the values of the MPD and our residents. This recommendation makes it explicit that such officers should receive training or whatever training is necessary to undo any bad habits they may have. Recommendation 10, again, addresses expectations. The recommendation tightens up the language and lays out clearer expectations with an annual affirmation that the officer is familiar with and will follow those expectations and understands the consequences for their violations. Are you next? Yep.
Are you?
Oh, next is Shara Blanche.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Okay. As mentioned previously, our slide presentation puts together our 22 recommendations into categories as a way to highlight our alignment with city priorities for negotiations. By this, we mean recommendations that are common sense because it is what the public assumes the city will bargain for, and it demands given the crisis and urgency the city is in due to the consent decrees. Recommendation 2 is regarding ceasing the practice of covering costs for officers when they are subject of lawsuits due to behavior outside of their official duties. Recommendation 3 is for a serious race and gender plan, which is not shown in the present contract. Our additional facts found on page 22 provides more details, including only one sentence that the union supports the city's efforts to advance race and gender equity. This is redundant because if it's already in the contract, both sides are implicitly committed to it. The proposed changes will give it some teeth. Next slide. Of these two recommendations, I'm going to be focusing on recommendation 5, which provides troubling new language to the last contract. This mandates that MPD turns over to officers the names of people requesting information on them and what that information was. As someone who has had personal interactions with Minneapolis police that have been troubling, including one of the officers threatening to show up to my home the day of the verdict, that is extremely troubling to me. There is no reason to make this contractually required when there are already mechanisms in place for officers to get this information. It will only make the public more wary to exercise their rights to information on officers. It sends the wrong message in the first contract after George Floyd's murder and must be repealed. Recommendations 6 and 7 are directly in line with the city's priorities of accountability. Recommendation 6 would end the practice of not interviewing officers until 2 days after a critical incident that results in including assaults and killings. Psychology recency theory tells us that after 2 days, recollections are not as fresh. The more time that passes, the more people forget. And we cannot forget that within 48 hours of George Floyd's murder, in fact, it was within 4, 5, 6 hours, MPD was circulating an account that falsely attributed Mr. Floyd's death to himself. In fact, this started, like I said, 4, 5, 6 hours within his murder. This opens up officers up to suggestions from what the media airs. At the MPD community listening sessions, Chief O'Hara has repeatedly asked for public trust. Trust is broken right now. This recommendation will be a start in regaining that trust. Recommendation 7 would provide best practices for a discipline matrix. This is another recommendation that receives special attention in the additional facts on page 24 of our recommendations document. This includes how to present how the present discipline matrix is not adequate and how it must be improved. This provides a roadmap that arbitrators will look to, assuming the city adheres to it, in upholding disciplinary action in the future. I have seen it work when I previously worked in labor relations for another city. Next slide. These 3 recommendations are directly in line with the city's priority for staffing. I'll be focusing on recommendation 17 regarding field training officers. Becoming a field training officer is an honor that is earned. I know this from personal experience, as my grandfather led training for Minneapolis police in the 1970s. It's actually one of the few things that I know about his career, since he passed shortly after he retired. What the current contract lacks is a definition of good standing, which is the predicate to becoming a field training officer. We provide a definition. Had this been in place at the time George Floyd was murdered, Derek Chauvin, with his 32 misconduct allegations, including 4 deadly force incidents, would never have been a field training officer. Thank you for your time.
I'm Kim Milliard. Thank you, everybody else. My fellow committee members type out their remarks and I come extemporaneously, and that's me. So my focus here is going to be on our wellness and our mental health recommendations. We hear a lot about, and I think this is a priority both on the Police Federation side and on the city side, and I think this is something that the community at large cares about, is that the people wearing badges and holding guns and who we literally deputize to enforce the law and and give leeway. We give them special privileges that everybody doesn't have to enforce the law in a particular way and to use a set of tools that are not available to pretty much any other occupation. We want those people to be well. We want them to be rested. We want them to be bringing their best selves to work. And on the topic of that, one of our recommendations here has to do with ceasing police responses to non-emergency calls. And we actually, I don't want to say we got this idea, but we noticed that the LA Police Union submitted a proposal that would eliminate 28 different types of calls that police are responsible to respond to. And again, these are things that are not emergencies and things that are non-criminal. And that list is very robust. You can see it in our recommendations, but especially right now, since we do have a staffing shortage among police, and we hear about how stretched officers are, it doesn't make sense to have them continue doing work that we don't actually need police officers to do, that other professionals with other training and specific skill sets could actually do a much better job of, in other community groups where people are equipped, they're passionate about responding to those types of scenarios. So we've got a recommendation for that. We also have, in the interest of reducing officer fatigue, we have two different recommendations around this. One reduces the number of hours that an officer would be able to work each day, and then the other one is the number of days that they would be able to work each week, absent some sort of emergency scenario. And in our recommendations, we cite two. This document is replete with a lot of really great links, but I don't expect that everybody is going to read every single end note. So I just wanted to, point out a couple things here. The fatigue cycle. So if an officer is working too many hours, then he's not going to get enough sleep. If he's not getting enough sleep, he's not going to be able to cope with the stressors of the job in a healthy way. And what do we always hear about? Policing is such a stressful job. And we're not minimizing that. And in fact, because it's stressful, they should have more time to rest and recuperate between shifts and between chunks of days in a row that they work. So in interest of that, we want to make sure that they're rested, that they're not going to be making mistakes, that they're, because of fatigue, because they've been working too much overtime, they're not going to look at a black person that they're interacting with. And this is what one of the studies cited in our footnotes shows, is that just a little bit of overtime makes certain biases more likely to come to the fore, which is that an officer is going to look at a black person and be more likely to assume that they have a weapon, even if they do not. And so for public safety, those are the types of situations that we are trying to curb. We want to give discretion to psychologists when police are coming back from critical incidents. They determine whether or not the officer is fit to return to his police work. But one thing that is absent and not addressed is whether or not they are fit to be working additional hours with their buyback work or their additional jobs, like if they have second jobs. And so all that we're asking is that that determination be made by the psychologist when they're returning from critical incidents. And then we want testing for anabolic steroids, as we know that these things can make officers aggressive, it can impair their judgment, and yet there's no testing for it along with other drugs. So we just want that included, along with annual mental health screenings, because, again, officer health and wellness is important. Suicide is the leading cause of death among police officers. And so behind the badge, we're looking into the person and saying your health matters, your humanity matters, your wellness matters. And we've crafted recommendations that we hope will improve that, both for their benefit, their family's benefit, and the community's benefit. And I'm going to hand it back to Stacy.
Thank you to all my fellow steering committee members. I want to wrap up by making 2 points. We are not anti-union. We're not against the Police Federation. We're not against police officers. We took very seriously a task of making recommendations that would better the job and better our community. I myself sat on the bargaining team and the board of the Educational Support Professional Chapter of the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers. I know what it is to bargain. I also know what it is to bring in the public. Between these recommendations and the ones we did in 2019, we held public listening forums and feedback forums on these recommendations. We started with 19. Because of public input, we went to 22. We gave out the recommendations. We met with people individually by Zoom, by email, and in person to get as much feedback as we can. These have been well vetted. And one of the criticisms, I hope it was a critique, of our first recommendations is that they weren't backed up sufficiently. So you will see over 70 endnotes with the research that we did. We took this job very seriously. We believe in our city. We believe we can do better. We believe this is the time. And so with that, I want to say our next commitment is to reach out to every single council member and ask to meet with them. In our last cycle in 2019, we met with all the city council members but one. Every single council member we met with supported one, a few, or even all of our recommendations. So we're looking forward to more individual conversations. We've reached out to Rashida Deloney, the new Director of Labor Relations, to have a meeting with her. I introduced myself to her, and we also are going to reach out to the Police Federation to ask for a meeting with them. So with that, our hope is that the City Council will, on your own time and with your staff and with each other, come up with what it is that you need to see in this next contract for you to vote for the contract, and what is, if it's not in the contract, why you would vote against it. So with that, we'll be glad to take any questions or feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I know that my colleagues will have some robust discussion here, but I just want to say how much I appreciate the amount of time that you all have taken to dive into this. We often, when it comes to every other element of policy in the city, housing policy, all those things, we take community feedback. We reach out to folks who are experts out in our community who aren't necessarily city staff, who aren't necessarily working in our behalf, and we take those recommendations seriously. We take community feedback, and so this is an area where I know there's great public interest. You all are demonstrating that there's great public interest here, and I'm sure that some of the feedback you got, some of the critiques you got weren't in good faith, but I love that you all took it as if they were, and you provided citations, and you just used it as an excuse to strengthen your work. So thank you so much for the work that you all have done, and I will now pass it over to Vice Chair Wansley for questions and comments.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. First, I just want to thank Minneapolis for a Better Police contract for presenting today. You all have been focusing on this work for years and have brought such a great level of expertise to this analysis. We also know, and this came up a lot during the deliberation from the last police contract, that the police contract process is typically one that's kept behind closed doors and often seems like this immovable object. We've also, as you pointed out, have seen, generations of city leaders use the police contract as something to hide behind instead of exercising political will to advance reforms or even, minimum changes. And then we see the rubber stamping of those contracts that ultimately perpetuate, harmful policies that then go on to hurt our residents. And with this contract, city leaders actually, as you pointed out, have the opportunity to end that pattern. And these recommendations are incredibly helpful for understanding some specific ways in which we could, go about making those changes. Even seeing what you highlighted, the first release of the public proposals from both the city side and the police union, we're already seeing MPD's initial proposals include minimal changes. It's basically implying that, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the contract as it currently stands, and that it just needs some yearly updates for things related to pay and vacation. I want to emphasize, that there are significant aspects of the proposals that you've overviewed today that are very common sense. And as you highlighted, are even being practiced at, in other police departments across the country and have also been brought forward by other police unions from across the country. So when studying our current contract, it's very shocking to see that even our proposals or our contract is kind of out of alignment with, practices that's being advanced by police departments and federations, from all parts of the country, and just with 21st century policing in general. So I'm really, really, again, grateful for your years of advocacy, as well as a few of the elected officials and community leaders who have raised, on this dais, just the importance that this contract or police contracts hold in advancing change. One of the pieces that I was super excited to see in terms of alignment between your proposal and the city's initial proposal is, for instance, removing the 70-30 provision, which seriously harms staffing flexibility and also makes it so that officers cannot work off duty while they're on leave. So I'm really excited that there was some alignment there, and hopefully we can move that forward. Again, these changes that were presented or recommendations really were helpful for making sure that we're not rubber stamping a contract that continues a culture of misconduct, racism, and excessive force from our police department. And if we are serious about implementing the consent decree from the DOJ and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, I think it's going to be important for this council to maximize these negotiations and really use as a springboard for changing how MPD functions. So I'm really grateful that you gave us some very extremely clear next steps and a roadmap on how to do that as we, weigh in on this process in the coming weeks and months, and to do things differently than what we've done before as it pertains to the police contract. So thank you so much. And I look forward to doing my homework more on these recommendations and applying it to the work that you called us to do in your presentation.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair Wansley. One question that I have that sort of popped into my head here was, I know that especially when it comes to some of the mental health stuff, one of the things that we will here, as we've had discussions over the last couple of years, is you can put whatever you want in the contract, but you gotta pay for it, right? Do you guys have opinions or perspectives on how council members can inform ourselves on what potential costs of those types of things, mental health evaluations, those kinds of things might end up being? If not, it's okay, but I figured I'd ask the question.
Does somebody want to take that?
I'm sorry, I missed half of it.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Often we're told anything you put in the contract, you've got to pay for. And I know that this has come up in the context of mental health, evaluations and some of those types of things. And so just wondering, in what ways can we inform ourselves, or do you guys have how we can track down estimates, stuff like that for what it might cost to implement some of those things into the contract?
I think that you can go to other cities that have these kind of things, other agencies that have them. It's certainly not police that have to have annual reviews. If you're talking about where you would find the money from, you're saving, unfortunately, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in salaries and benefits. So you could take some of that money and put it into something like yearly mental health exams. Also, you will save by not paying out for workers' comp and lawsuits. So how do you figure that out and amortize that is something I think you can study. I think a great source is the United States Department of Justice, because they've done these consent decrees, they've put in these type of things, and I'm going to pass it on to anyone else who has any other ideas.
Right, I just want to mention that we have closely tracked the PTSD settlements from the very beginning, and we are well over $28 million at this point.
Yes.
You could clearly get mental health, annual mental health testing and so forth for far less than that. And in fact, in Mendota Heights, the chief there not only requires annual mental health evaluations, but she also encourages her officers to attend to counseling and gives them paid time off to do it. So there are things that can be done to improve the mental health and address the mental health needs of the officers that are just a lot less expensive than $28 million.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
I also just want to point out that along with the PTSD claims, the city has also incurred $120 million in legal settlement costs to pay for all the excessive force and abuse. So if you're having these annual mental health exams and you're screening out and finding some of those issues that are going to cause these behaviors on the front end, you're going to save yourself literally hundreds of millions on the back end.
Yeah.
I would also suggest the University of Minnesota, Johns Hopkins University. These are Harvard have done, Yale have done great studies on preventative care and how much they save, and I think that has to be factored into that. I also just want to emphasize this is a tool. The police contract is one of many tools. We know you have a lot on your plate. We saw that with your consent agenda and the contracts that you have to deliberate on. Everybody wants to get in on coming to the reforms. That's the good news. How to pay for it, how to make sure that they're all aligned. I want to make sure that we all are on the same page too. We purposely call these recommendations.
Yep.
We are not saying that every single recommendation has to be passed as is. If they get passed across the table by the city or the police federation, they become proposals. All of us are very familiar with the way contracting works. Language may change. We just felt it would be very helpful to not only give the reasons why something has to be changed, but the actual language so that there's something to work from and speed the process up. But we're not naive that this is a tool and that things will change as it progresses.
Absolutely. I think it's incredibly helpful. And yes, was more asking how we might sort of figure out estimates, not how we would pay for it, because I think that we all know that we could figure that out if it's something we value. One last question that I had was around the non-emergency calls. I know that this is probably like an offline conversation that we can have. I know that we did a 911 sort of problem nature code study. Wondered if you all, just in your own capacity, had determined which codes you think the officer shouldn't be responding to, or if it's just that we should be examining those codes and figuring that out. So just wanted to know if you already had a list that you in your mind, an ideal list.
I think it's hard to come up with a priority at this point. I let other people speak, but I think that they're all on the table. What we can do with them and which ones can go out are up for the debate. I would have to say to you, I don't think any one of them is less important than the other.
Sure.
Because the fact is, the officers did not join the force to go to a neighbor's house and deal with their teenagers' party. Sure. But we do have community groups who thrive on that because they are the ones that are connected to the community. They are so much more skilled and better able to do it, but they're paid 75% less than police officers, so it's not an attractive job. Recreation specialists, these are jobs that don't get paid enough. So I think that we really have to look at this as a leap of faith. It is not easy to make systemic reform. I can just give you an example. When my sister was born 60 years ago, severely developmentally disabled, we had people with developmental disabilities literally chained to beds and chairs. We don't have those institutions anymore. They had to be closed. People in politics, appointed and elected, had to make a big leap of faith that closing those institutions would yield better results for the community financially and in terms of morality, and better results for people with developmental disabilities, and it has. We have to take a leap of faith. We promised this 4 years ago. Those promises were made over decades. It's now time to really make sure the rubber hits the road.
I just want to say in response to your question, Chair Ellison, basically what we want to talk about essentially is an expanded response network.
Yeah.
Right now, people call 911 and they've got 3 buttons: fire, ambulance, police. We need to have other buttons. We need to have that mental health crisis, which I recognize we have a pilot program that isn't doing nearly enough because Minneapolis police still respond to 95% of those calls, as a police response criminalizing mental illness. We need to have a community conflict button, and there could be other buttons as well. Those things have to be developed over time, but Los Angeles Police Federation gave us a roadmap, and there's other places that have given us roadmaps as well. There are things we can do. You mentioned about the issue of the 911 codes. There are far too many codes. There are like a zillion buckets, as you know, because you've seen that study. I have too. These things need to be consolidated. There needs to be better training at 911. We suggested, for example, that a mental health practitioner be embedded with 911 to be able to take those initial mental health crisis codes while the 911 call center staff are being trained on how to detect those calls. Because people don't call up and go, hi, I'm having a mental health crisis, send somebody over, It doesn't work that way, right? We have to train people on how to recognize those calls. And so we had actually recommended that that there be an embedded mental health practitioner to take those calls. Much like at many physician practices, they have a nurse take the calls once they start hearing code words like chest pain or difficulty breathing and things like that. We flip those calls to a nurse, and that nurse decides if that person's an emergency room visit or if it's can they wait till tomorrow? All of those kinds of things. So you put people in charge to make those kinds of decisions who have the skill set to do it. And these things are not hard to do. I've worked with Brooklyn Center. I helped them develop their budget and their program for an expanded response network. I'm working with Brooklyn Park. I'm working with other municipalities. I would be happy to work with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion from my colleagues? Oh, Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. I'm really glad that you also brought up recommendation 12, which is ceasing police response to non-emergency calls. In terms of also just cost around that, we have a major opening with this particular piece in light of, us learning at budget last week that $19 million that the state legislator gave to the city of Minneapolis for public safety, purposes, and I'm pretty sure it was inclusive of, basically police responses, is now being moved over to HR, and specifically around recruitment and retention bonuses. I'm assuming some of that will deal with this police contract. But if there's $19 million that's now on the table that was originally, relegated for public safety purposes, here's the opportunity to also fund some of the things that you even mentioned of, I think, starting with that, problem nature code studies are really, common sense kind of piece, and the scaling down of those codes. I know before the Office of Performance and Innovation had a lot of staff transition, they actually received a federal grant to do additional analyses of rolling out pilots for victim services or, domestic violence. Those are some of the codes that even our staffing study or our problem nature code study has identified as not receiving, the most effective and efficient response by law enforcement. So could we match those dollars with that 19 million and not just have it be absorbed towards wages and recruitment, and really use this as an opportunity to amplify that expanded crisis response that we're building an infrastructure around, starting with BCR, which was even acknowledged in both the Department of Justice settlement, being like, that's great work, continue doing that. So here's an opportunity to use the contract to say, oh, we're all in alignment with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, DOJ, and now this contract in the city of Minneapolis saying, yes, we're going to all be in alignment and go in on expanding our non-law enforcement responses.
Right, and if I may, there was an article in the Star Tribune this past weekend talking about the shortage of police officers and so forth, and with some community members expressing frustration about things like the precincts being locked. Is there any reason why a non-licensed personnel could not sit at that front desk? Why does somebody that sit at a front desk, we don't have doctors staffing the front desks of medical clinics. Why would you not have, a non-licensed person who doesn't have a gun be there and hand out complaints and give people information and things like that? That's the main things that happen at those front desks. There's a lot of different things that the city started for a while talking about in terms of getting people who are non-licensed personnel to be able to take up, like taking traffic, where no one's injured, taking those reports over the phone. All of those kinds of things can be done. What I see us doing is going backward. Right. And then there, and then in addition to that, we are the last city in the state of any substantial size that runs 2 officers in a squad. And I know that Councilmember Johnson talked about this. Right across the river in St. Paul, they ride able, which means 1 officer in a car. There's no excuses for what's going on right now. And we could be saving a lot of money, but also maximizing the efficiency and the training and the skills of the officers by having them do the things that it requires a law enforcement professional license to have. And there's so many other things that they're doing that it doesn't require that level of skill. Thank you.
I guess I was just going to add on the recommendation 12, in mentioning that it was the LA Police Union that proposed that it would be really sad to me if a police union could put that forward, trying to get that work taken away from their officers, and yet on our side here, if we can't get the city to recommend that. So, just making that comment.
I don't see any other questions from council members. I really appreciate you all coming here today and not only giving a presentation to us, but obviously to the public, because this is a public broadcast. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time here. Any comments before we complete, or closing comments before we complete the committee here?
I just think this is a great opportunity for all sides to come together. We need to have a sense of urgency, but not recklessness. And I think that is something that we are all in agreement of. There's no one in this city who wants to see the consent decrees fail, who wants to see a police federation contract run roughshod over the city, which it's done before. I believe we should, take Chief O'Hara at face value, the police federation at face value, the city, the mayor, that we all want to move forward. So I think this is an opportunity. When I'm asked, am I optimistic about whether our recommendations will get consideration, I say I am optimistic. Should probably say I'm reservedly optimistic, but I am far more optimistic now than I was 2 years ago. So I do want to say thank you. This is an amazing opportunity. I think it's a fantastic service that committees of the City Council are taking presentations from the public, because there are people who have invested themselves in community work for decades that are certainly experts, and to come before you and be able to present, I think is a way of moving us all forward. So thank you again, great opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you all for coming again. Thank you for your service to the city, even though you're not elected, which doesn't mean you don't serve the city, So I appreciate it. And with no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.
Thank you.